Alright guys, welcome back. I just got a good 24 minutes of just rubbish out of my system. But in lieu of upcoming 2020 Pride Month, June, it's right around the corner where I live. It's less than 4 hours away. I want to talk about a topic that's Pride relevant, and that would be dating. Dating is one of those topics that those of us who like to partake of such activities do so. So what can we even say about dating? I mean, gosh, there's so much. Like, there's really a lot. I'd say there are a lot of things that, when we talk about COVID-19 and the riots and the curfews now, tonight's the first night of the curfew, at least where I live. Those things are definitely going to impact all of this stuff that I'm going to talk about. If we want to talk about race relations, prejudice, profiling, what are some other topics out there? Definitely the quarantine, social distancing. And there's going to be Pride on top of that. We've got LGBTQ plus rights and movements and gender equality and there's a lot going on, guys. I feel like we're adding and adding and adding. And nothing's really giving right now, but hope you guys are all okay out there. I'm not going to talk about all that stuff right now. I'm not here to bring people into that whole reality of things. We're all living it, so let's talk about something a little different. I mean, I might incorporate it a little bit, in all honesty, because I can't really be so far removed from it. It definitely affects dating, though. All this stuff is definitely going to affect dating in 2020 as a non-straight individual. Or you might be straight, and you still might be dating somebody of a queer background. Or a background where they don't identify as straight or don't identify as cisgender. I mean, that's something that happens too. So, yeah, I don't know percentages on any of these things or likelihoods, but I'm gonna start talking about some stuff that's just on my mind. Try not to ramble for too long, for a whole 5 minutes, but let's get to the point. So some major points here that I would say would be when it comes to dating people, so I'll say myself instead of you, because I don't like saying you because it sounds so aggressive and pointing fingers. But myself or another person that I might be interested in, the two of us dating, can come to a lot of kind of roadblocks, road bumps, I don't know, accidents, potholes, whatever you want to call it, roadblocks, just stuff in the way, barriers, because everyone kind of comes from their own perspective, right? So if you take one person from wherever they were born, however they were raised, however they were treated, whatever values were around them, and whatever they kind of found resonated with them, whether or not they were doing it or not, and then where they are now, And then the same for our own self. That's a lot to be merging between, myself and another individual, right? So if you want to think about it that way, it's already going to be complex. I don't want to call it complicated, but it's complex. And I don't want to say difficult. It's there can be challenges, and I don't want to call it complications, or anything that's just implying that it's like an issue, because it doesn't have to be looked at as if these things are issues, but they're definitely things that are just growth points, really, that it's like, okay, is this thing gonna make it so that we're no longer talking anymore, or is it the next thing that comes up in 2 more weeks that makes it so we're not talking anymore, or so that the communication got awkward, or so that we had this situation that was uncomfortable? What is it that's gonna give, right? And lead to those sorts of situations. So we don't really know what it is that's gonna happen when we start introducing to someone new. I don't know, some people meet various ways. Some people meet live in person first, before even chatting, because they didn't start online. Some people start online. Some people get introduced through a friend. So there's some form of a referral process, or just a walk-in process, I guess. I could put it that way. And the referrals, they're always going to be on the biased end, whether it's someone who's doing like a self-referral, like a dating app where you make your own profiles and info on you and everything, or if someone else is doing the introducing, family, friend, whoever it may be. They'll probably give a well-rounded, explanation, but just for that person to get into their dating life, they might skew towards the good or skew towards the bad. They might be pretty accurate, but it's really hard to judge all that stuff. I'd say it's easier to have the person who wants to date just meeting and making those decisions for themselves, but it is good to have whatever kind of warnings about certain stuff, just so you don't stumble through it. So I mean, that's not like a really major complicated issue, right? And yes, I'm using those words. But I think something that does come up really is just, people coming from their different places with their different backgrounds that have challenges, and trying to work around those, right? Because it's like, if you think about those of us who have been hearing messages our whole lives about how we identify, how we see the world, how we interact with this world, how we naturally feel about ourselves in this world, and the world as it, is having its impacts on us. A lot of times we've been told that is wrong or bad, or we're going to go to hell for it, or someone's going to be disappointed in us, or someone's going to turn over in their grave, or, someone's going to dismiss us or fire us, or, you know, what do you call it, disown us or kick us out, or be just abusive towards us and have to live with their hatred. These are messages that we're taught in households, in churches, in places that are supposed to already be safe spaces. That, I mean, if your initial safe space learning experience is already going to be messed up by, even if you're not out and you're hearing these things around you, you're going to learn what's okay and what's not okay. And I mean, I don't know that many humans when they're growing up, especially as young people, who are totally okay with full on rejection. I feel like people have to kind of develop like a thick skin around that, or just a method of not really caring too much, unless they just don't have like compassion like in general already. But it's like people generally people want to belong, right? Generally people want to be connected to community, connected to those around them, interacting, have good relationships, a good reputation. Nobody wants to get bullied and picked on and teased, or, kicked out, or, lied to or manipulated or harassed. I mean, I don't think anybody wants those things in their lives. And especially when they're young and growing up with it. And it's like, if everywhere you're at is like that, and then you go home to a place that's like that, or if you're not even out, but you're fearful of the how probable or how likely it is that those things can occur around you, because you can see people acting around you and you see how they are. And you can kind of weed out a lot of BS just by listening to people sometimes, like their homophobia, and their just like their how they just are prejudiced against, maybe they're not homophobic, but maybe they're gender phobic. I don't know what the actual terminology would be, but I've met people who are so like hung up about, like if somebody's trans, or they just don't get it. They keep saying that, I just don't get it. I just don't get it. And it's like, you're not even trying to learn. Like, you're not immersing yourself. You're not around those people. You're not talking to them. You're not interacting with any of them. And you look at them and you make judgments and comments and you hate on them. But, and the person I'm talking about, I've seen them be attracted to those people too. But it's just kind of weird that I think maybe they're weirded out about it, about their attraction maybe. So they're kind of hating on those people. But it just irks me. I can just go on about that forever. But, yeah, I mean, like, what is appropriate, right? Like, what is something that you would notice, that you would say, yeah, this is something that's an issue, or yeah, this is something that is hard to, pass through without any kind of complications. There's this YouTube channel that I really kind of like. Um, Blanking on the name. I think it's called Skin Deep, or The Skin Deep, or something like that. And they have this kind of intimacy card game on there that you can play with people that you're close with. And it has a lot of like kind of questions where like some people are kind of joking about it, and it's awkward that they're doing it on camera, I'm sure. But it's like questions like, when do you feel closest to me? Or, what's one thing that that you wish I knew about you, or something like that. Like it's questions, like serious kind of questions that they ask each other, and it's like supposed to bring them closer together. So those kind of things are always kind of a good idea. If you can do that, and then also learning about the other person's learning about their kind of background, or any issues that might come up for them. But yeah, I'd say overall, I mean, dating can just be a complex situation, really. Yeah, there are a lot of times where I'd say, you know, I mean, everyone does say that communication is super important, but I mean, I would agree, and I would say, with that comes, you know, even learning how to communicate about communicating. It's like, sometimes just a simple thing, some people, when they're mad, like to just be mad and brooding and angry and have a temper, and some people like to just pretend like they're not mad. Or some people like to, be mad in a private place but never in public. Or some people like to talk it out with a friend and open up about it. And some people don't want to be open about it and maybe journal or do their own thing. But if you can imagine in a relationship, if one person's pretty mad about something and maybe they like to be validated on it, and then the other person is like more like, oh, it would be better like to cheer them up because you're mad, let me make you cheer up, and so I'm gonna try and cheer you up. And maybe they don't want that, or maybe that's not how they deal with things, or they don't prefer that and they take it in a way that's like that wasn't intended. Like the person wants to cheer them up because it would help, they think if that person was smiling, they would feel better. The person themselves will feel better, and then they would assume that the person who was angry was feeling better. But maybe that's not the case, and maybe they don't want that. So it's kind of hard to tell, like, what's okay, like what's not okay, like what does someone need from you, what does somebody want from you, how can you be what that person needs for you to be if it's possible, like what do they need from you right now. Those are important questions to kind of know the answers to, because everybody's individual and everybody's so different. It's hard to really even say like who needs or wants what. It doesn't really matter on their gender, or even if they're non-binary, or any way that they identify. It's hard to really know what someone really wants without them telling you. And even if they tell you verbally, it's like, were they being accurate, or were they telling you what they wanted you to hear, like that kind of thing. And this is kind of my paranoid brain thinking, but it's like, yeah, I mean, like, yeah, I overthink everything. But yeah, it's important stuff though to take into account, because it's like, um not everybody is predictable or, stereotypical. Um a lot of us are pretty complex like that. And, there might, you know, some people like to be completely left alone. Um but it's hard. I'd say one of the harder things is when you don't understand where the other person's coming from and what they're doing or why they're doing it that way. And or if it's hard for you to like express that to them, or, if you feel like uncomfortable like expressing, hey, I need this from you, for me to be comfortable, is that okay if you do this instead of what you were doing, or come to some sort of compromise, not just like demanding something of them. Something common that I would say comes up a lot in kind of newer relationships, especially lately, with people quarantine, social distancing. I had to drink this smoothie, my throat's so dry. Sorry. Something that comes up so much for some people that I've noticed, is when it comes to like texting and chatting and messaging. Um, it's like, when do you let something go? When is it gonna fall through? What do you do to get it back? Is it possible? Um, So Aaron Doughty talks a lot about like manifesting and relationships and how people interact in relationships. One thing I'd say that's kind of obvious, well, not obvious, but one thing I'd say that is very noticeable is how much people want somebody really badly, and then how much it is that they invest that energy and, worry that that person's not going to like them or be with them or want them or be around them or anything. And he talks about, kind of easing up on that, strong desire as a method to kind of not get too bogged down by the desire part of things, because it basically pushes another person away when you're, kind of needy. They can sense that, and then they distance themselves if they aren't into that neediness. Um, but then it's like, do you just keep a distance and not invite them places or not talk to them because you're trying not to try? I mean, it's like, trying not to resist too much from what's naturally happening, trying to roll with that resistance. It's hard. But I'd say it's definitely possible. But yeah, I mean, those are some things that I would say definitely do come up a lot. It's also gonna come up a lot that people are gonna feel, a little more like, I don't know if there would be more or less trouble developing intimacy, but I think, and I don't mean just like physically, like in a sexual way, but all kinds of intimacy, like, I think it's easier on some levels because you have a lot of deep conversations that can be had about all these topics and backgrounds and things that, you kind of just get straight to the point sometimes of like, okay, like your identity and how do I call you, and what's okay, what's not okay. Like, those are conversations that kind of come up early. At least for me they do. But I think it's usually appreciated. And not in like an intrusive kind of creepy weird way, like asking people like all sorts of things that like clearly they'd be uncomfortable answering if you're newly meeting each other. Or it's not really that they would definitely be you know like that, but I don't know. They might be, because it's kind of like a socially, at least in this environment, socially kind of unacceptable thing to really be like intrusive in a creepy kind of way, like in a nosy kind of way, not like, and also not wanting someone to like completely educate you about every single thing about them. I mean, that can be, it depends on the person. Some people love that and some people just hate it. So it's like sometimes you just want to have like a relationship with somebody and be together with them and like share with them and stuff, and not be like an encyclopedia for them or something where it's just like all gay all the time. Let me like ask you any single question that they ever had. It's like sometimes you're just not in the mood for that. And especially if it's all the time, it's like, dude, like read a book or like talk to somebody. But I don't know. Those things can be difficult. It's all just challenging stuff, in all honesty, though. It's not like easy. But I don't know, guys. I gotta get back in the house. It's getting late. I'm tired. Alright, thanks for listening.
Hey, you know, man. You know, man. You know, man.